Hello. Hope you're having a great weekend. Thanks for joining me. It's Sunday, and each Sunday I review a new book. And man, I really enjoy this. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for giving me a few minutes of your time. Now, last week, if you watched my book review or listened to my book review, I reviewed The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. And if you watched it, you'll know I was chuckling through that review. The book didn't 100% resonate with me, although I did get a lot out of it. And I was hopefully complimentary of the author while still saying it didn't quite resonate with me. But after listening to that book for 47 days, known as 10 hours and 38 minutes, which I listened to in Audible, I got done and I'm just like, man, I am off kilter. I gotta reset my mindset. And so I picked an exact opposite book this week because I picked David Goggins' Never Finished. And I'll just show you the difference here. And then I'll make a quick joke and we'll get into it. So this is my Audible here. This is my last 2 weeks. You see the Let Them Theory down here, and you see Never Finished above it. It's actually really funny. And before I get into the David Goggins book review, I want to warn everybody about one thing. Is in his book, in the book Never Finished, he uses a lot of profanity, and he doesn't use it obscenely. It's just part of how he was raised and how he grew up, and it's just part of him and is being authentic. But I did a word search count for the book, and the word search count came up that he used the F word 368 times, which is pretty good for 312 pages. So 368 times. He used bitch, excuse my language, 20 times, shit 127 times, and he used the N word 10 times. Now, the N word he used very tastefully. Both him and one of the other authors were very hesitant to use the word. They were apologetic, but it just was representing what he incurred or what he faced. So he wasn't using that, calling somebody else that word. He was using it like, this is what I incurred growing up. This is what people called me. This is what people thought about me. And that's how he used the word. So it wasn't super offensive, but there's a lot of language. So I'm going to try to do the book review and not resort to that language. But the humorous part here, and the part I want to just kind of smile about, is the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins is like, hey, let them. Let them. Whatever they're going to do, let them, right? The David Goggins Never Finished is the F them theory. So we couldn't have more polar opposite theories between those two authors. So there you go. Now, by the way, I'm going to straight up, I love Never Finished. And I actually liked it a lot more than his first best-selling book, which was Can't Hurt Me. Can't Hurt Me was a little bit more in your face. It's a little bit more abrasive to me. You hadn't never really read something like that. And so it was harder to digest. I loved Can't Hurt Me, but I really liked Never Finished better. It's just as good. It's a little deeper, and it's a little bit more polished. And David Goggins is a little bit more self-aware, a little bit more mature. And I wouldn't say he's sensitive. That's not part you use, but he's definitely more aware. And so I liked it. It has just as many stories. Yes, some were ones that he had in his first book, but a lot of them weren't. A lot of times he was going deeper, and I liked it. The second thing, on Can't Hurt Me, I actually read that book versus Never Finished. I listened to the Audible, and I can tell you right now, you want to listen to the Audible if you're gonna read either book. So the Audible is preferable. And David does not read the book in the Audible, but he has a bunch of really interesting devices, including these things that he calls podcasts. So he has one or two podcasts every chapter where the narrator and him do a podcast about that chapter's topics. So you get, David's insights and his inflection and his energy, and his cuss words, but you get his insights, and you get that twice a chapter that you do not get on the written book. And so I can tell you, one of the reasons why I enjoyed Never Finished much more than I enjoyed You Can't Hurt Me is because I listened to the book versus read the book. So there's just one tip. All right, so if you're familiar with David Goggins, he's a retired U.S. Navy SEAL. He actually, he's the only person to have the distinction of going through both the Army Ranger Special Forces, whatever their high-end corps, and the Navy SEAL he passed, and then he also did the Delta Force. He did not pass through that, but he's done all three. He's done quite a few other just really incredible things. He's an ultra endurance athlete. He's ran 100 mile races. He's ran a handful of 250-mile races, 240 to be specific. He's done long distance swims, long distance bike rides. He's also holds a world record for the most pull-ups in a day. He's a very accomplished athlete, and it's all part of his absolute pursuit to be the toughest, hardest man to ever live. Now, he uses a lot of other colorful language to explain it, but I'm willing to believe he may be, because he constantly just throws himself to the edge, and he wrecks his body doing it, and it's unbelievable the amount of mental strength he needs to overcome all these unbelievable obstacles. And that's part of the whole point of the book, is these physical obstacles, these obstacles that life, gives you, can be overcome mentally. If you put your mind to it, it's unbelievable what you can achieve. So this book, the Audible, was 11 hours and 10 minutes long, or 7 minutes long. It was somewhat lengthy, but it just, in my opinion, it just flew by. I'm going to just give you some highlights from each chapter, not a lot, just so you get a sense of what the book is. And then I'm going to wrap up with some insights, and I'm going to really encourage you, if this is your flavor, even if it's not, it may be not your flavor, but it might be something helpful to read. Sometimes it's stuff that we don't necessarily like, gets through to us. So I would encourage anybody to read this. So chapter 1 is maximize your minimum potential. And in this chapter, he essentially says, look, he's not super talented. He has a somewhat sickly body, and yet he's become, one of the toughest people in the world just through mental toughness. I got to back up this 1 second. I got to back up because I skipped the fact that there's three introductions. One by Joe Rogan, which was fantastic. One by Dwayne Johnson, which was equally fantastic, although Joe Rogan's was probably a little better. And one by his mom, which plays a role later. But she did great. All three were really good. So then chapter 1 was maximize minimum potential. He considers he has very little, talent or skills. He just has mental toughness. And he goes, you can untap, your potential through your mental toughness and viewpoint. Chapter 2 is Merry Effing Christmas. He just talks about how many miserable Christmases he had growing up, how many miserable things happened on Christmas. And he just says that's the way life is. Sometimes they give you a lot of misery, and you just got to rely on your own resilience. And the other thing is you got to confront all those crummy moments. You can't shove them down and ignore them. You got to let them out of the closet and let them roar, and then stare them down. Chapter 3, which is very similar, is the mental lab. And there he talks about what he does to get mentally tough, the things that he puts his mind and body through to toughen up mentally. As you imagine, it's pretty dang extreme, but it's really enjoyable, reading about it. Chapter 4 is A Savage is Reborn. That's the thing. I love the way that he used savage throughout the book. I really appreciated it. And Unleashing the Savage. And he gives a definition of the savage in the book, and it's not what you think. It's not somebody out there killing people. It's just, letting yourself loose to be the best you can be, kind of thing. And he talks about in The Savage Being Reborn, it's just all about transformation. He talks about how he kept rebuilding himself mentally, emotionally. Because one of the things that he struggled with in this book versus the first book, in the first book, he was starting to be somewhat known as an ultra athlete. But he wasn't really well known, and he wasn't wealthy. And so through his first book, he got a ton of speaking engagements. He made money on his book. He created this really vibrant company. And he almost sounds like, look, I lost my edge. And so part of me, never finished. So I had to go back to find my savage, I had to go past the comforts of life and put myself back out there, on the edge. And he talks about that quite a bit. Not necessarily, he talks about it quite a bit, and it's really interesting. So that's where The Savage is Reborn. Chapter 5 is the disciple of discipline, and he really just talks about how discipline, the only way you can really change the form that life created for you, that gave you, is through discipline. That's the only way you can change your reality. Chapter 6 is getting hit in the mouth. Here he's just like, hey, look, man, adversity is part of life. Don't whine about it. Don't cry about it. just go, thank you, can I have another, and move on, in total Goggins kind of style. And it's really all about just never quit. Chapter 7 is the reckoning. That's about facing your demons head on. And that means you just got to embrace your failures, your trauma. You got to then let that feed you, don't hide from it. Chapter 8 is play until the whistle. That has to go as he keeps pushing himself late in the 40s. He's like, look, I'm playing till the end. I'm playing to the whistle. And that's with every single contest he does, every job endeavor, everything he does, I'm going to play it out to the end. And then chapter 9, which is the closing chapter, is ringing out the soul. And that's just, man, give it your all kind of thing. Give your life your all, So some of the key thoughts in the book is, transformation is a lifelong journey. Discipline and consistency are essential. Embrace adversity. Accountability and self-reflection are critical, and the power of resilience. It's all classic David Goggins. And if you haven't listened to him before, read him, you got to read him. You at least got to understand what the whole thing is about. But I like this book better. It fired me up. I'll tell you, this is funny. I had a hard time listening to Mel Robbins, Let Them, and I listened to it as an audible. When I do my audibles, I typically listen. I go out for an hour or two every morning and get my workout in, get my run or my hike or whatever it happens to be. And man, my times are so slow with Mel Robbins. They were like, my time was slow, my distance was less. Like I was going shorter and I was going slower listening to Mel Robbins. She was just bringing me down. But then now this next week, I'm listening to David Goggins. Man, my time improved by like 15%. I was going about 20% longer. I was going through bad weather. So definitely, I recommend if you do road work, put on David Goggins' book. You'll have your best times ever. It just is awesome. So that's the book of the week. I enjoyed it. It was great. I think no matter who you are, I think you might enjoy it too. It's a great It's a great listen. I definitely recommend the listen. I thoroughly enjoyed it. With that, thanks for giving me some time. Check me out on LinkedIn and my other socials. I'm trying to put relevant, valuable stuff out. Have a great weekend, everybody. I look forward to talking to you again soon.